Hi, I'm Don,
And I'm Bo.
and we're going to try to follow through on Fallout New Vegas.
This may be part 2 of 2 or part 2 of 3. It depends.
Yeah, it depends on exactly. Sometimes it's important to know when to let things go,
which is a theme in this game.
Especially for one particular DLC, but yeah.
We just went really deep into Kazar, thanks to Don, because I never learned any of that because I kill Kazar.
And Kaiser's former right-hand man was Joshua Graham. I'm sorry, I called him John once, and if I call you John, you're going to be John until you correct me. Joshua Graham was not present. I know a John Graham who is a very dedicated public servant, so as far as I know, he has not been dipped in tar, lit on fire, and thrown into the Colorado, but I haven't asked him directly, so I can't just assume that he hasn't been.
So anyway, we killed Matthew Perry.
Yep. Ring-a-ding-ding, baby.
We did promise to make Vegas swing.
Yes. I'm saluting, by the way. I'm standing for the Perry. I kneel for the cross.
Kneel for the house. Stand for the Perry.
I kneel for the crucified Perry. I stand for the Perry who actually escapes. You can get him out of the camp, by the way.
You can?
Yeah, he just stands outside the camp in open eyesight of the Legion saying ring-a-ding-ding, baby.
Because he's defiant till the very last breath of his life.
As brave in life as he was in death. Skyrim quotes in better games. Anyway, his last words to us were to go to his apartment, which we could have gone to either to sleep with him and then murder him if we were a woman. With that,
don't do that.
It's weird.
It's weird.
I do love that this is 2010. You know, gay marriage was a ways off still. And, we didn't have Gamergate, so people didn't really complain about it because they were kind of deaf to it. Mm-hmm. I saw one guy on the internet talking about the confirmed bachelor perk. He was talking it up. Like, yeah, it's really great to use it because so many enemies are men, and it gives you, confirmed bachelor, it gives you a damage bonus against all male characters. The only problem is this game's kind of gay. Really? I don't pick that up at all. Yeah, but every time I talk to a gay man, I talk gay to him. You have the confirmed bachelor perk, dude. Yeah, but I don't see what that has to do with it. Confirmed bachelor is a euphemism for a gay man. You mean I'm gay? Yes, you made your character gay with that perk. It's an Obsidian game. What did you expect? Why did you think Arcade Ganon jumped your bones from the very... I didn't want to be... I'm not gay. I don't want to be gay. I just want the damage bonus.
Dadgum, man. I didn't know I was signed up to be no gay character.
But yeah, that is one thing you can do, and you can use that just the same as you can with Lady Killer, and it's a really good... That's a nice time. That's actually a good time capsule. That's something that you might be able to cite as late in the war for gay acceptance.
Absolutely.
Because Arcade Ganon is gay and he's a good character. We'll talk about him later. Right now, Matthew Perry, sexuality unknown, not relevant.
And that's a good thing that I noticed even in playing with what little of Outer Worlds I did is Obsidian's really, really good about making sure that people are represented in their games.
Yeah.
They're very good about that. And like, I know that like the Gamergate types, like, oh, they're forcing this. People exist.
Yeah.
People exist and they deserve to be represented in games. Damn it. Mm-hmm. So anyway, kudos to I raised for those watching or listening.
You pour it out, but that'd be wasteful.
And absolutely don't pour it out. But anyway, speaking of wasteful, Perry's dead. He wasted his life on a gambit against the against Mr. House that did not pan out.
He does have a chance for a legacy. He specifically says, "You make Vegas something I'd be proud of. Go find Yes Man. I made it so that fellow can't help be helpful, you dig?"
And by the way, we're about to meet the greatest character that Obsidian has ever written. Nay, I say any North American developer has ever written.
Mm-hmm.
Yes Man.
He is a Securitron, one of those cool little robots. Mm-hmm. Normally they have a little policeman face or a sheriff's face. He just has a happy face. And he will do whatever he is told by whoever is telling him. He would be Jeff Sessions if he were near Trump. And he would be willing to die as many times as possible because you can't quite kill the little bitch.
He's the only unkillable NPC in the game, isn't
By
he?
design, because you have to be able to get an ending. And Adam, during his playthrough, put this to the test. He killed everyone he could possibly kill. And I'm like, dude, I don't know how Obsidian could have planned for you. There is no...
They did, though.
You have no idea what's going on. You're just a mindless barbarian killing everyone, ignoring quests. But Yes Man cannot be killed. You will eventually get a ending. Because Yes Man will always have another body to jump to.
I love it.
But Yes Man, like, hey, yeah, that ship, instead of giving it to House, why don't you use it? Why don't you go to that bunker underneath Caesar's camp and seize control of those robots for your own ends? And this is the beginning to an ending that I do not like, but I appreciate that it's there. The everything I want and nothing else ending. The wild card ending, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
This gives you the option to pick and choose which factions you like, which ones you want to destroy, and get to the end game on your terms. This means you can go to the Boomers, who are a delightful bunch, once a Republican, always a Republican. There's a chance you might have heard about these people before. There is a abandoned vault, a lot of those around, but this one's kind of recently abandoned. It's poisoning the water supply of the sharecroppers. By the way, I fucking love this game because you can find the food source of every community.
Right.
Every village has a farm and people working it. There's a rancher in that one that one T-Rex place.
Yep.
There's farmers there.
Yep.
Like, no matter how small the town is, there's an economy. The sharecroppers work for the NCR. And the west side near Vegas, there is a communist commune with the followers of the apocalypse that is siphoning water so they can have their own hydroponics facility for their co-op. And you could completely miss this place. There's no quests that lead you to West Side.
Right.
It's just some happy hippie commune with a super mutant hanging out that has no tongue. So he says, smash. They're own dialectics. You see, there's a thesis, and it smashes antithesis, and there's a synthesis. Oh, what a simpleton. He knows nothing of our world. Caesar does not understand that you can't just make up antitheses like that, especially when there's already an industrial society to our immediate west with trade networks. I love Loudmouth. By the way, say hi to Marcus for me. Bye now. He's around. I love this game.
So
I'm up there. Smart super mutants. I love that. We're getting off topic. I'm sorry.
there's a
Boomers.
smart, and like.
Okay, that abandoned vault we were talking about before we digressed into other cool shit. There are you find out that this was a vault where they give you all the guns. Well, not all the guns, most of the guns. You open carry. This is a social experiment for what would people be like if you gave them guns and taught them that being guns is the best thing about you. All your value is that you have a gun and can use it. And if you were around for Vietnam, if you weren't busy, if your leg wasn't bothering you that day, Viet Cong would have surrendered. What would a society like that do with? You kind of have to piece it together because there's only pieces of this vault left, and it's leaking radiation into the sharecropper's water supply. It's just a big all-around problem, and it leads to a moral quandary because there's a message saying, "Hey, there's some of us who are still alive. If you open this door, you can let us out, but it would also lock you out of shutting down the reactor, which would lead to the water supply of that region being useless. So you can let them out. Eventually, you'll run out to them in the west, into the wasteland. Like, hey, thanks for letting us out. Yeah, but a bunch of people wanted bazookas, but we can carry around handguns. That wasn't enough. They wanted machine guns. They got machine guns. They wanted bazookas. We wanted nukes. Overseer said no. He was a commie rat. Had to kill him. And we killed most of ourselves in the process. I usually just, you know what? You guys had your shot, and you missed. You hit your reactor. I'm helping the sharecroppers. But the boomers are the people who left the vault. And they founded a society you might expect them to. They found a military base because they knew there were explosives there. Cool guns. I can respect that. I can sympathize with that. big boom is fun. And like all communities, it has its own it has its own functioning economy. Of course, to get to it is a little awkward because they shoot on sight with artillery.
Yes.
Precious artillery they can't reproduce, and they're wasting it gunning down people you could just walk up and spear. Like, say what you like about Caesar's Legion, they don't waste ammunition they don't have
right
on me.
Right.
Like, there's a guy at the canyon gate who says, like, hey, I bet you can't make it to that gate over there.
Right.
Give me 200 caps. When you come back, I'll give you 400. I shot that son of a bitch. not initially. Usually, I don't. I do my knick-knackery on Elder Scrolls. I'm fully prepared to go insane Gandalf in those.
Right.
In New Vegas, I consciously equip myself with a decent but not overpowered pistol and a stick and try to survive that way. I put limitations on myself. Maybe a beat-down rifle for long range. But with this...
I loved rifles in New Vegas.
Yeah. But basically, I was like, okay, they're going to shell me. I see where the shell holes are. I'm going to make a beeline for it. So I just jam myself with all the drugs in the world and do the $6 million man run. And then I still make it there with no legs or arms. And then a guy with a nuke launcher is pointing right at me when I'm 1 foot away from him, doing the "if you cross me, we all die" thing. And like, oh, dude, just let me in, please. It's been a long day. And you can go around, you meet their camp. They have a hydroponics facility. There's a great science check where this kid is giving you the tour of their farm. Like, where do you get protein? You're cannibals. If you fail the science check, you're like, wait a minute, you need protein too. You're cannibals. Or if you pass the science check, oh, you must grow soybeans for protein, right? Oh yeah, you must be really smart for an outsider. They have solar panels that they found at site. They got them running, and it's working just fine for them. It's a desert facility. It cranks out all the power they need.
Yeah.
You need to go get some solar panels from Helios 1, that abandoned solar array. That's also a weapon, but
that's a cool little quest line. Yeah.
It's also important. Brotherhood of Steel, they originally took that place over, and then the NCR kicked their asses 3 ways to Sunday.
Yeah.
Which plays into that whole thing. Hey, you know that teacher's pet from the first game? They're not actually a teacher's pet because Obsidian doesn't do that. They move on. They explore new things.
Yes.
And if you're an isolationist bunch of nitwits who don't want to accept new arrivals all that much, that's what's going to happen to you. But yeah, basically you get to the Boomers, and the Boomers do have a really cool quest where there is a World War II, not a World War II bomber, but a bomber in Lake Mead, which is actually a thing. Like, I really love the little details from local history.
Oh, yeah.
We want to raise this bomber and rebuild it. That must be a cold-ass lake to preserve a bomb.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into that thing, but you do you, man.
Yeah.
But rebuilding a bomber is a fun thing, and if you get them on your side for your wild card ending, or for House, even, or NCR, it's building. It's okay. You're preparing for the end game. Having a bomber would be cool.
Mm-hmm.
It would be cool. I bet some cool things would happen. And then you also go to like the cons, or what's left of them. They're the cool roughhouse apocalypse people who still like that apocalyptic lifestyle.
They're very Road Warrior.
Yeah,
like the Road Warrior people.
I love that they simultaneously approach these people sympathetically and with just a hint, because the cons are descended from the same people who have been annoying the NCR since its inception. The people who kidnapped Tandy were kind of like that, I think. I don't know if there's a direct... I don't know if it's... but yeah, there's a reason the NCR hates these people, and they're still bandits, but they're also people. They have a functioning society on their own, and the NCR is the party with the most firepower. So when they have that massacre, I think at Bitterroot... No, Bitterroot is the name of the... there's an NCR trooper who is a con. a former con.
Yeah.
He was a child who was adopted after the massacre, and he gives some interesting perspective because he hates the cons. He hates his parents. It was a hyper macho society, and they're constantly getting up in everyone's faces, pumping out their chests, like, "Hey, what do you want to do, huh? What do you want to do?"
I'm standing right here, bud. I'm standing right here, bud.
And NCR just wipe them out, like, "Hey, that was pretty. You didn't have to do that." And Bitterroot's like, "No, fuck them. They asked for it." And, well, why did you take a name that's according to that local legend? Look, I never got my naming ceremony. I figure my beatdown was surviving that stupid massacre. That was their fault. They owe me a name. I took one. Such a good character.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, you also have some sympathy for the cons, and you can get them to ally with the NCR or Caesar, or even a house after a fashion. But if you do that, they lose their identity over time.
Right.
Because that's just what happens. If you tell them to leave, followers of the apocalypse have to actually join them, and they form a Mongol horde up in Montana, which is kind of funny.
Right.
But yeah, you just go around, meet all these cool people, and just explore the world. And there's an end game. You know when the end game's happening, but it doesn't have to happen right now. You can prepare. You got time to prepare, which gives you carte blanche to just explore.
Right, and you found this yes man.
Yeah.
He now yes man plays into every ending.
Yeah.
He plays into every ending. He is the catalyst for which the game continues.
Mm-hmm.
Because you found out why Benny killed you, tried to kill you. You were carrying the chip, and the chip activates something in a vault.
It upgrades for Mr. House. It will upgrade his reactor, and the reactor that's powering Vegas outside of Hoover Dam. It has its own independent power source, and it would also upgrade all the Securitrons to use all their weapons and bring all the Securitrons in Caesar's camp online. If you work with House, those are Mr. House. Those are Mr. House's. You're playing by his rules. If you work for Yes Man, they're under your control. But yeah, you got the keys to the kingdom with that fucking chip.
And the thing about the chip is you were in possession of this chip in the first place.
Yeah.
You were a courier.
You were delivering
hired to take it to Mr. House.
I think it was it was in the boneyard, like in Los Angeles is where it was found. It was supposed to be delivered, but the war broke out faster than Mr. House thought, so it was lost. That's why he went into a coma for a while and only recently woke up.
Because he was expecting this delivery.
Yeah. And that's why he has his agents out looking for this chip, because it's going to fix the Golden Throne. And the Emperor's going to come back.
And and one of the agents was one of the guys that hired you to take it to him.
Yeah. And there is another guy who was going to take it. But he saw your name on the list and like, nah, let this guy take it.
And that's a DLC story.
That's a DLC story, yeah.
Right.
But, we do. So, Mr. Yes Man has filled us in on everything we would have missed. He's the character that's there just to make sure you have an ending. But he's like, hey, this is your wasteland. Make it yours. So you go out to all these little factions. You get them on your side. There is another faction that you might miss if you don't recruit Arcade Gannon. Arcade Gannon is that one gay character that if you're a confirmed bachelor, he will immediately follow you. Otherwise, he's basically just a really sarcastic, fun guy to have around.
Right.
He's hanging out in this little anarcho-syndicalist commune where a bunch of left-wing radicals are just in a slum. We're going to make the world a better place, man. I don't know exactly how. But, this guy doesn't have pneumonia anymore. That's a win. We got this great con. He wanted to study poetry, but we've got him copying textbooks in his spare time. They're basically monks. It's basically Canticle for Libo. It's a kinder, gentler Brotherhood of Steel that actually accepts recruits, so it's why they're still around.
Right.
Even though they're not actually a major power and never can be a major power. But Arcade, he's sticking out like a sore thumb. He's with them because he believes in them, but he's obviously not raised by them. And he questions some of their idealism. Like you ask Arcade, what are you doing here? Well, They've got me. See, these crazy left-wing idealists think that we can't just keep scavenging stim packs from before the war forever. That we should start manufacturing our own. Crazy idea. But he's saying, look, this is going to be this is going to be a long-term project, and I just don't know if I can really dedicate all the time my attention to it. Because, and he says, like, there's nothing new under the sun, but he uses the nihil novi sub sol in Latin. Like, that's the language of Caesar, which is great storytelling because nobody recognizes Latin. That's just the language those assholes across the river use. And he gets defensive. Hey, that's just Latin, man. A lot of people have spoken Latin throughout the years. Some of them have been pretty nice. It's really Some of them have been quite pleasant. Like, this guy knows a lot more about the world than most people, and he has a big beef with Caesar. In fact, one of his endings is you selling him into slavery as Caesar's physician. It's awful. He kills himself.
Right.
And the ending slide is Caesar treats Arcade with absolute respect, at least as much as you can for a slave. He treats a slave the way the Romans treated Greek slaves. He's learned. You could actually talk politics with this guy, but since he's a slave, you can always kill him if he pisses you off.
Right, exactly.
Like, if he ever beats you, if he ever convinces you climate change exists, you can kill him. And I love that because Arcade is a philosopher. You don't know exactly where he's getting all this, but eventually you will meet enough people that will just trigger him to let on his background. He is a product of Navarro, the last enclave outpost on the west coast. After the rig went down, canonically, Navarro held out for a little longer. And he was a child raised in that environment. And he's talking about a bunch of other people who were around him. And he got a decent education from the last remnants of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
So that's why he knows all this. It's why he has this outsider's perspective. And it's also why he's on the run, a little skittish about letting on, because the Enclave is still public enemy number one for NCR. In a lot of ways. And he has this idea, look, things are coming to a head. I have some friends. They did some bad things, but they're good people. Maybe we can get them to help. I want to be a part of this. And he's kind of coming to terms with his upbringing and him being his own self, because his dad died in some skirmish or another, and these other people kind of raised him. And you go out and basically you're trying to get the Power Rangers have disbanded, but you're trying to get them all back together, and they're old and grizzly. Like, there's one guy who's hanging out in a shack, and he's like, "Oh, this guy, he is a conservative. The liberal stabbed us in the back. We should have held Navarro to the last man. Let me do the talking." And like, "Hey, Arcade, it's good to see you. You want me to help the NCR? That's the enemy, son." Like, he's the penultimate badass. He's 70, but he can still kick your ass. He's that guy.
Right.
And Arcade's like, "Look, I know what he is, but he's still family to me, and I think we can get him to go. He will agree to go to your little meet and greet, but he doesn't promise anything, just because he has nothing better to do." And then you go find this other guy is like, "We did some terrible things. The war was a mistake. Everything the Enclave was about was a mistake. At the end of the day, I was just fighting for my family because this was the only place I ever knew. Yeah, I'll go." And then you find this old woman, this kindly old woman who was a vertebrate pilot who crashed in Klamath. I don't think the timeline really works, but I just like the reference of a vertebrate that crashed in Fallout 2. And she's like, "Oh, it's so good to see you, Sonny. Like, oh, you want to go to this little meet and greet? Oh, that sounds like fun." And you get all of them together. They argue about what they're going to do. And Arcade is like, "Guys, this is your last hurrah. You're never going to resurrect the Enclave, but why don't you use your power and skills to make the world remember you?" And that is what kind of sells them on that. And they start training. "Yeah, we'll be there when you call us."
None of this is something you have to do, by the way.
Yeah, this is completely optional.
This is completely optional.
You do have to get the conservative guy on board. He will be 100% behind you if you go with Caesar because he hates the NCR.
Right.
But you can get like, don't you want to teach these liberal upstarts how a real man fights? Yeah, I kind of do.
And it's and they work for several different endings.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and
Can you play them in houses?
yes, because essentially you're working with the NCR in house right up until the moment where you renegotiate the terms of the NCR's relationship with Vegas and Nevada as a whole. But Arcade has a really interesting thing where, depending on your discussions with him, he will say, should I go with them to fight? And you could say, no, that's their war. You did your part in getting them back together to find some value in their morally ambiguous upbringing. You need to make your own way. And he'll go back to the followers of the Apocalypse, and he will leave. It's a follower that will just leave and do their own thing based off their interactions with you, and it's really cool.
That is very cool.
Like, he goes back to the followers of the Apocalypse, and he just becomes a dejected leftist. He's disillusioned, but he hasn't given up the dream. He's still just going to go out and try to find some way to manufacture stim packs out of available resources, because at the end of the day, we have to stop climate change. And even if we can't quite do that, convince the world to do that for us, we have to keep trying anyway. Anyway, that's just one thing you can find in the world, and it will influence the end game.
Or even if not the end game. Oh,
Or
beg your
just-
pardon.
yeah.
Ending.
Ending, yeah.
Yeah. Beg your pardon.
And
Go
there's speaking of the followers of the Apocalypse, they will not lend military forces. They don't really have military force. They have guards. They'll defend themselves, but mostly they just hole up in the fort and survive based off being incredibly useful.
Right.
And I really like that about the faction. Like, when you first meet them, there's just a bunch of punk rockers in a library,
Right.
with a knife and a bunch of street smarts. Like, hey, there's these cultists. People go in, they don't come out, but every now and again we see giant hulking green figures. I'm not a math magician, but I can put two and two together.
Right.
And in this, they're just a bunch of intellectuals who are banding together for survival and trying to make the world a better place. But there is some perspective on them not being the most popular in the NCR, because the NCR is now no longer a revolutionary state. Its FDR days are done. Now it's the institution, and there are people who just don't want to be associated with these annoying-ass leftists constantly questioning their military imperialism.
Right.
And, like, this is actually summed up really well in one character, a very minor character. He gives you a quest to go to a horror vault full of fungus people, which came out, before The Last of Us.
Yeah, important to know. It came out before The Last of Us.
It did come out after, I think, there was a good piece of fiction with the same premise that came out before that, but I don't know. It's neither here nor there. But this guy who gives you that quest, you can dig into his background. Like, this is a 50s scientist, crew cut, professionally dressed, and he's got some kind of chip on his shoulder. And you can kind of dig into this. Like, what's your... So, where'd you receive your education? Well, are you questioning my credentials? I will have you know that I'm out here for a reason. I'm going to solve our food supply problem because I'm the only one who can. I'm here for a reason. The NCR just didn't put any Joe Schmo. I'm not that one guy at Helios 1 who has a theoretical degree in theoretical physics. I actually have a degree I studied botany. Where did you study botany? The followers of the Apocalypse. But it's not because I'm one of them, God damn it. I may have gone to a university, but I'm not some bleeding heart liberal. It kind of echoes another character in Canticle for a Leibowitz, which is obviously one of the big inspirations for New Vegas.
Absolutely.
Or Fallout in general, the whole setting. Brotherhood of Steel is obviously a big one, but Followers of the Apocalypse also.
Yeah.
There is one character in the middle part of the book where you're getting into the Renaissance. The Catholic Church is no longer the central figure. There are secular scientists, but those secular scientists are new, where they get their education. Monks, clerics. Mm-hmm. They're starting to revolt, and they're building up institutions of their own, but at the same time, those institutions were not available to them. And the learning, they're doing a lot of good for the kids of the younger kids generation, and they're actually starting to resent that these kids are getting these advantages they didn't have. And one of the characters there is this Einstein figure. He's the guy who invented electricity. He's the guy who invented dynamite. He's building telegraph wires out of the empire of Texark. And he goes to this monastery because he hears that there is evidence at this monastery the monks have been collecting of a civilization before the flame deluge. And there were humans before the flame deluge. Everyone knows that. And if you dig deep enough, you'll find asphalt. But we had asphalt for a long time. Who's to say this civilization was that much better than us? If look at that guy out there. He's sitting on a mud cart. Are you saying that guy had spaceships? No, that's not possible. There's no way that there was something better before us.
Right.
And he goes there and he finds a textbook that confirms all his theories. And he makes the connection. This is a 3rd grade science textbook. And it's talking about things he's just now thinking about. And he comes to the realization that he hasn't invented a thing in his life. He's reinventing things that have been lost and forgotten. And he goes into depression over this. And that's kind of where this scientist, this random NPC in Vegas is coming from. Because he is living in a time where the NCR has its own universities. And he is helping build those universities. But he's in late middle age. And he's never going to see the results of his research. And he owes everything that he already has to a bunch of people he hates politically.
Right.
It's just a great character.
Right.
It's such a fucking Obsidian character.
Yeah, that's really that's such a good microcosm of why Obsidian games are just so meaty and chock full of great character. It's like no detail is too small.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I like about it. But so we went and found the Estiman. We're working with these factions. We're headed towards an ending.
Yeah. Eventually, you're going to reach a point where the other factions will no longer want to speak with you. In some case, generally
because you've dealt with these other ones.
Yeah.
You've
crossed the line.
And you can't. It's important to note this isn't a Bethesda game. You can't play buddy with everyone.
Yeah. There will be.
You are making choices.
Yeah. House does not alienate the NCR. In fact, he makes a point of making sure you work all the angles with them. The House always wins, obviously.
Absolutely.
And there is a mission where you are sent to save the president of the NCR. And the House has a very interesting reason for why he wants that president to be saved. Because his end game is to kick the NCR out of Nevada and then stabilize relations with NCR under a new administration. This president, this is his war. Once he loses it, he's going to take the blame, be thrown out of office. Somebody else is going to show up. He's going to sign a very lucrative trade deal for both parties with them, and he's going to build a foundation for a viable future for his end game. And he wants this NCR president to survive, and the NCR wants the NCR president to survive, obviously.
Right.
And there's a really fun murder mystery because Caesar has very good saboteurs and assassins. And so you have to find out who isn't really who they say they are, find them, and either alert the Secret Service or cause enough of a ruckus to force the NCR president to escape before something happens. Find the bombs. It's just fun. Like there's snipers you can find,
right?
And of course if you're with Caesar's Legion, you get to assassinate the president any way you want. And and this is the perfect kind of game where any dead president is a good dead president. There's so many ways you could do it. You can strap NCR, you can pickpocket a grenade onto a private that's going to be standing up next to him to give a speech. You could then hit the C4 detonator. You could blow up the vertibird. You could sabotage the vertibird. You could just run up and beat him in the face with a fisto and then jump off the bridge. You just fill yourself full of drugs and do that. Yeah. But anyway, you deal with that situation one way or another. And then eventually, at this point, either Caesar or the NCR is going to hate you. They're not going to work with you anymore. because you're locked into that ending or one of those endings. And Caesar or Lanius, because Caesar has a brain tumor. And if you are not on his route, generally speaking at this point, you've probably locked yourself into Caesar's route. If you've gotten far enough to where you perform surgery on Caesar, you're probably on that route. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of funny because a good way to kill Caesar is just to botch the brain surgery. Because like it does the thing. This is where the bad game mechanics kind of work, because when you if you have the bloody mess perk and you botch the surgery, bloody mess can and will proc. So when you accidentally botch the brain surgery, Caesar explodes and a leg will rocket off through the room, and someone will walk in and say, "You killed Caesar." No, it was an accident. Okay. I'm no doctor. You're the doctor here. I'm sure this was inevitable. I'm sorry. Oh, God. Oh. But yeah, Caesar makes his move, or Lanius makes his move. NCR, there's nothing like the NCR has a real MacArthur kind of guy in charge, or a guy who aspires to be MacArthur, because he was in charge the first time and he got upstaged by this left-wing radical. We shouldn't be fighting this war, but God damn it, it's my job to fight it, so we're going to fight it the right way. Mm-hmm. That ranger who was actually sabotaging the NCR, you can leave him around. But basically the general wants a victory that will actually upstage that left-wing son of a bitch. And he has this uninspired idea to just throw all his weight at Caesar, and Lanius has outsmarted him because he's got guys already in the towers. And you intervene with all the forces you've convinced. If you fix the Boomer's bomber, the bomber shows up, and it's really cool. You'd think bombing Hoover Dam might be an issue. It's not. Don't worry about it. It's just cool. Rule of cool is in full effect. Mm-hmm. The Power Rangers show up in a fucking vertibird with Gatling guns and power armor. Everyone's like, "What the hell?"
This all is going down at the Hoover Dam, by the way.
All at the Hoover Dam. Battle at the Hoover Dam. Second battle at the Hoover Dam. Because the first one, because that's like the big thing. It's what everyone wants. It's Caesar's bridge into the West. It's NCR's ticket for free energy. It's House's ticket for free energy and control of his territory, or yours if you're doing wild card. Mm. But you fight your way into Caesar's camp, and as you're going into Caesar's camp, you can look off to the left. And if you've activated the Securitrons, this is where Yes Man or House's plan kicks off, and you see flames start to rise up because a bunch of robots have just risen from the depths of hell and are attacking a bunch of people with machetes. But Lanius shows up with one of those bumper swords. The swords made out of car bumpers.
Right.
Those big, ridiculous things. And he's very articulate. But he's also kind of like... He's a really interesting character. He's the guy who replaced Joshua Graham. He's cunning. He's ruthless. Everyone respects him. But at the same time, he doesn't have that philosophical background that Caesar does. Everyone kind of says, this is the kind of guy who might keep the Empire together. But whatever plans Caesar had for making the Empire an actual empire that might be something you'd want to join or be a part of, that kind of died with him.
Right.
But Lanius does have that cool, because he was just a tribal, like anyone else that was a tribe before they became Legion. And once he was fighting Caesar to a standstill the whole time until he got wounded. And then while he was out of commission, his tribe surrendered. And Lanius took this as a direct insult to him. So he says, yeah. So Caesar recognizes him because he was the biggest, fiercest fighter and opponent, and Caesar values that. He fancies himself this just and enlightened despot. It's like, hey, I want you more than I want anyone else. What do you want? What can I do to bring you to my side? I want to kill every one of my son of a bitch colleagues who just surrendered. Okay. And that's his character.
Right.
He's the guy who I didn't get defeated. I didn't get defeated. You guys got defeated.
You were begging me, bro.
Yeah.
You were begging me, bro.
And you can defeat Lanius in a lot of ways. You can fight him. He's a tough opponent, or you can talk him out. There's a lot of different ways you can talk him out. You could...
if you fight him, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's very fucking hard.
You can convince him that you can bluff him with speech. You can talk about barter, logistics. Do you really have the logistical change to hold Nevada? Or science? Look, there's a bunch of whiz bangs that just erupted from the earth beneath you. Do you really think this is all we have? And one way or another, you just convince Lanius that it isn't worth it. So he goes back east. It's a place which frankly, he doesn't care about Vegas. He considers it a place of weaklings. He doesn't want to build a new Rome. He's happy with the Legion the way it is. So he's of a mind to go back, strengthen his position in the east, and come back. And that is your victory. You've secured the dam. If you're working with the NCR, that's just where you get your pat on the back from the general. If you're working for Wildcard, if you're working for yourself or House, this is where you're like, okay, General, I need you to move your ass back across the Rockies. And these are the terms of Mr. House. He's willing to provide you with energy, science and technology. He just wants a free economic zone around Vegas and its greater environs. Also, he wants open borders. Any NCR resident who wants to come to Vegas must be allowed to come, because this is going to be a service-driven economy until he can get industry going up. And it's really cool because the general is like fuming because he's having his quote unquote his victory stolen from him, and you can just say, "Dude," and then like he gets surrounded by the Securitron army. And like, hey, yeah, that was your victory. Yeah, sure, man.
Right.
Do you want to do this the easy way or the hard way? And then you can convince him to go back, take all the blame, and have Mr. House or your plan go off. Or you can tell Yes Man to throw him off the dam. And he will just ragdoll off the dam.
So at this point, this is where you're choosing whether you could play in Yes Man's hand this whole time and be like, nah, it's me. Or vice versa. You could stay with Yes.
Yes Man does have a hint that, by the way, I found some other upgrades. I'm going to be away for a little bit. I'm going to upgrade give myself a little bit more independence. Don't worry about it. But it doesn't amount to anything. In the slides, it's like, you made Vegas swing, or Mr. House made Vegas the heart of an industrial empire. Right. The NCR marched proudly, bringing the banner of freedom eastward. Caesar made sure every man got a girlfriend. And 4chan rejoiced.
Oh my God, Caesar is the 4chan.
Yeah, the pseudo-intellectual son of a bitch. I love Arcade's take on Caesar, because he is Benito Mussolini. He was a member of the Socialist Club, right up. He dug all the intellectual crap, and then he found a hang-up, and he completely betrayed the movement.
Right.
And look, I need to solve the real problem. The real problem is immigration. Fuck you. But I love Arcade. Anyway, that in and of itself is a fucking great game. But there's a bunch of DLC. Really great DLC. Other characters that you can explore and figure out. One of the first, I think maybe the first was Dead Money.
I think so.
Yeah, you get a message, an advertising message. If you talk to Veronica, she is one of. First, let's talk about Veronica. She's one of the Brothers of Steel, younger, liberal, hip, gay girl. Mm-hmm. Punch sister is the good argument for her. Right. She has the Fisto, and she's always sarcastic. But Brotherhood of Steel raised her. They're her family. She doesn't want to betray him. Her quest line is basically fixated on the Brotherhood of Steel's fatal flaw of isolationism and failing to change. She shows, so she goes out and finds a pulse gun that will cripple power armor, which is like the only thing Brotherhood of Steel has going for them at this point.
Right.
And she'll bring it to the Elder and say, look at this. This is what they have running around out there. And he can say, that's probably just a prototype. They can't build any more of that. The NCR can probably build more of these if they want to. And if you keep pestering them, they're going to want to. We need to either negotiate with them, change. We could still keep our mission statement, but maybe we can approach things in a little bit different way. Maybe we can switch to solar power. It is cheaper now than anything else. No, this was good enough for. I love this line. We outlasted the end of the world. We'll outlast these upstarts.
Right.
And he's still like, dude, do you really just think someone is going to come out and deal with all your enemies and all your problems for you, and you can just hide out in this bunker and reemerge and reclaim the world like you did last time? Dude, that's not going to work. Veronica specifically says, we'll die out. And he says, I know. Because he can't change.
Right.
He can't conceive of a brotherhood that is what she's trying to make it. So she leaves. She's decided she's going to, she can at least use her upbringing. Look, I may not be a very good fit for my home community. Like, I'm not welcome at Thanksgiving dinners anymore.
Right.
But I can
Because
use...
she voted for Obama.
Yeah, but I still value my upbringing. I still value my ability to do sick mud burnouts. And I think I can put this to use in California. California. I'm going to go join the Followers of the Apocalypse, use my technical expertise, and they 100% support her from the beginning. But hiring manager, not in right now. Come back in 24 hours. You walk outside the door, wait 24 hours, go back in, everyone's dead. Power armor people are just like, you betrayed us for the leftists. I knew it. Fortunately, you had that pulse gun that you had to get. So they're dead. And Veronica's like, okay. By the way, there's this, my mentor was a guy named Elijah. He went a little crazy after we failed to hold the dam, or failed to hold Helios 1. I don't wonder what happened to him. You go to Sierra Madre, the treasure of the Sierra Madre. And every one of these title cards for the DLC has an old style 50s movie, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Yeah. It's just like, this guy shows up in a hologram. He's like, there's treasure here. I'm going to get it, and you're going to help me. Then you help him. You meet a bunch of cool people on the way. And you can lock him in with a treasure. Because the whole story of that DLC is obsession and letting it become a prison, because he could have left this place anytime he wanted, but he was obsessed with getting the technology inside it. Mm-hmm. And you can lock him in with this treasure and leave. The best part gameplay-wise is that there's a bunch of gold bars down there that you want to take so you can fill your bathtub with it. You don't really need that much money at this point in the game, but the bathtub full of gold bars.
Right.
The hard part isn't finding it. It's letting go. Because they all weigh 50 pounds.
Right.
I love that. I love the DLC. And then Old World Blues. Old World Blues. A bunch of full sci-fi, full 50s wacky sci-fi, happy fun times. You wake up after going there, and your brain has been scooped out, but you can still think and talk, and you have all your memories because there's a transmitter connected to your brain for some reason.
So good.
And then a bunch of weird 50s scientists who have been sitting around in a drug-fueled haze with nothing but their egos and each other for company, like show up like, what is this lobotomite doing in here? Is it supposed to be here? I really don't know. No, what? Look, it's pointing at us. It's pointing at us with all 10 of its penises. It's wiggling its penises at me. Make it stop. Those are fingers, Ron. I think those are fingers. Let me check my encyclopedia. Yes, those are fingers because they're just brains in jars. And then there's like one that's really fucking horny. Like, oh, look at its smell. You don't look at its smells, Rhonda. You deal with these little crazy guys, and then they get a phone call. What? Oh, it's 5 o'clock. It's time for our daily report from the nefarious Dr. Mobius. And a red tinted evil brain in a jar shows up in the background. Your doom is coming. My robo scorpions will cleanse the world. Bye. He shuts off. Lobotomite, you are the chosen one. You must stop the nefarious Dr. Mobius. You get to Dr. Mobius. Yeah, those guys are crazy. I just use my Robo Scorpions to keep them entertained, because if they find out there's a world beyond this crater, everyone's going to die. My favorite is actually my favorite DLC is actually the one with Zion. It's not the most interesting. It's not the funniest, but it has Joshua Graham. And he has had a story of redemption. And after having all the pride and ambition literally burned out of him, he goes back to his home, the Mormons, literal Mormons.
Right.
He was a missionary.
Yeah, he was in Kaisar's partner. And
He spent his whole life as a missionary, bringing the light of civilization, his own brand of civilization, to the tribes, and he was always frustrating and slow. They accepted your gifts, but they never accepted your values. Then he found the power to give commands that would be obeyed because Kaisar's legion would enforce them, and he became intoxicated by it. Once he was finally shown the error of his ways in the worst possible way, he goes back home, and he thinks maybe he can redeem himself. But then Kaisar finds out he's there, and he kills pretty much all the Mormons. And Joshua Graham knows it's his fault, and he's kind of trying to deal with that. He's like, God help me, it's time to go back to the old me. Because like he mentions the Colt 45. Did you know that one of my tribe made this way back in the day? And okay, cool trivia. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Obsidian. The Colt 45 being the ancestral weapon of the Mormons. it's fine. I love it. So he's got his little cave. He's got his little tribes. They're tending to tribes. Kaisar has the 88s, I think. No, not the 88s. They're another tribe. I love the tribes.
Yeah.
Like some of the tribes are descendants of German tourists who mixed with locals because they survived the nuclear war and degenerated to a tribal culture, and that's what's going to happen. There's going to be weird German, Spanish, and English words being mixed together. So much thought went into that.
Right.
And there's these other tribes that are invading that want to take them out to prove their loyalty to Kaisar. And Joshua Graham is 100% behind arming. Like, all these peaceful tribes need to be armed, trained, and prepared to kill these invaders. But there's another guy. I can't remember his name. I'm not going to make up a name for him because last time that happened, John Graham happened.
Right.
But he's saying, no, the purity of these tribes is worth protecting in and of itself. Zion is a nice place. It's their home, but we can find another home. We need, like, once they shed blood, it's over. And it's a legitimate philosophical argument. And it's a great... it's very hard to find a game that tackles religion, real-world religions, in a good way.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Like, this is Christianity. This is post-war Christianity, but it's still Christianity. It's Mormon... It's two Mormons having a legitimate debate over the best way to practice their faith. And Joshua Graham obviously has demons. And he can obviously go down a very dark path. But at the same time, this idealistic guy could just let these people be wiped out trying to maintain their ideological purity. So it's an interesting little dilemma. And if you go down Joshua Graham's path, like, he'll quote Bible verses. Like, he'll go straight up Old Testament, like, happy shall he be who bashes their young's heads upon rocks. You know what that means? It means we're going to kill every last one of them. But then, like, if you force Joshua Graham to spare him, he actually, like, yeah, I don't have to be that person, that kind of guy. I can control myself. Mm-hmm. And he just goes back and reads the Bible and lives in his cave with his family and just finds some measure of peace. I think the ending slide, if you do that, is people stop fearing the burned man, and Graham doesn't care. He just lets that part of himself go.
Right.
The legend he built for himself is dead, but he actually got to live for a little bit.
Right, he got to live a peaceful life.
Like, he talks about how he's in constant pain because there's no burn warts in Zion, so he's constantly bandaging himself. It's a penance for his past sins, which, yeah, that's
a good allegory there as well. I think that's
a good. You know what? We could talk about New Vegas all day. You know, let's leave it on this. I love the line. It's letting go is important. You got to learn to let go. New Vegas may very well be the last thing Obsidian ever does with this enterprise. They brought it into the world. They explored a lot with it.
A lot.
They did a lot of cool things with Vegas. They let a lot of their old icons die or be rendered irrelevant. They let people lose their legend, fade into obscurity. That's okay, because you got to learn to let go. And now they're trying something new. They're exploring new things with Outer Worlds. I haven't played Outer Worlds yet.
I played a little bit.
I understand it's being well received. I fully expect that I might not like it as much as New Vegas. I don't like the art style. I don't like the setting as much. I could be proven wrong. Mm-hmm. I hope I am. If not, I'm still not going to hate Outer Worlds because it's Obsidian trying to do something new.
And that's the way the world works.
Yeah. Like Fallout 3 is like, hey, remember the Brotherhood of Steel? They're still around, baby. And they're always going to be the only thing that ever matters in our setting. And you know those raiders? They're still around. They're always around. They're always respawning. They have no reason to be here.
Whereas New Vegas was a...
New Vegas, every town has a reason to be there. Every town has its own garden, its own history. People have been rebuilding for 200 years, and they've accomplished a lot in their own way. They don't need you, but you can help. In Fallout 4, you're just Jimmy Carter, and it's fun.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's just not fulfilling, because why haven't... We need sir, we need a well. Do you have 2 tin cans, sir?
But
I have 1 tin can in the shed, and 1, legend has it, is in the box.
But
I will bear this cross for you.
So I think on that,
I don't need another Fallout from Obsidian. I would like it, but if this is what
cool,
they want to do,
this is what they leave
if
on,
this is where they want to let go, more power to them.
Absolutely. And we're gonna leave it there. And I say, go play New Vegas.
Yeah, if you love Outer Worlds, New Vegas, you could. There's no reason you won't love New Vegas.
There's no reason.
If you hate Outer Worlds, you probably find you might love New Vegas.
You might love New Vegas.
Now, New Vegas is, we all know New Vegas is buggy. It's an Obsidian game. You pay for the greatness
of the brokenness.
But sometimes the bugginess is the greatness. Remember, we started this with Matthew Perry, and remember how I said that you can crucify him. Crucifying him is incredibly messed up. There's no reason to do it.
Right.
But the one time I did, I was like, man, that was messed up. I don't even want to continue this run anymore. Mm-hmm. Just knowing he's out there crucified, I should go see him, like, see if I can help him. This is just messed up. Like, I mean, he looked at me and asked me for help, and I said, I do not know you, sir. So I'm walking on this road where the Kaiser's Legion has all their crucified drug dealers, and his cross is empty. But I see a shadow. I look to the sky, and silhouetted against the setting sun, Matthew Perry has bugged out 20 feet in the air, and he's casting a shadow. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns from heaven above. With wisdom, power, and love, our God is an awesome God.
Like and share, subscribe. We're gonna leave it there.
Matthew Perry saves.